The moment it happened, the entire courtroom froze. Not even the cameras dared to move. Judge Judy Shendlin, the unshakable icon of daytime justice, the woman whose glare alone could silence chaos, sat motionless, a faint drop of disbelief glinting under the studio lights. Across from her, Karen Blake, a 42-year-old salon owner with fiery red hair and an ego large enough to fill the entire courtroom, had just done the unthinkable. She spit, yes, actually spit, toward Judge Judy's face. Gasps erupted from the audience like an explosion. The bailiff's hand twitched toward his sidearm out of pure instinct. Even the camera operator whispered a stunned, "Oh my God," that the mic barely caught. For 2 full seconds, time stood still. The sound of that single act, that wet, shocking sound, echoed in the walls like a gunshot in a church. Karen blinked, as if realizing too late that her own rage had just crossed the one line no one, in 25 years of courtroom television, had ever dared to cross. It wasn't supposed to go this way. Just moments earlier, she had been laughing, mocking the process, mocking her opponent, and most of all, mocking the woman behind the bench. She had called Judge Judy a washed-up old relic playing pretend with other people's problems. She had smirked when the audience gasped. And then she did it. But here's what nobody expected. Judge Judy didn't flinch. She didn't shout. She didn't call for security. She simply stared, the kind of stare that could stop a hurricane mid-spin. The silence in the studio felt like standing at the edge of a volcano moments before eruption. The camera zoomed in slowly on Judge Judy's face. No tears, no fear. Just calm, dangerously calm. Karen's bravado began to crumble. The fake confidence that had carried her through every argument, every tantrum, every manipulative lie in her life started to fade. Her hands trembled. Her breathing grew shallow. She realized too late that this wasn't just another argument she could talk her way out of. This was the moment her arrogance would meet the full force of accountability, live in front of millions. The bailiff took one step forward, waiting for the signal. The audience leaned in, waiting for the explosion. But Judge Judy didn't move. She simply spoke, her voice a low, measured whisper that carried more power than any scream ever could. "Ms. Blake, do you have any idea what you've just done?" The entire room felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. Karen swallowed, her eyes darting toward the exit. But there was nowhere to run. And then, just before the commercial break, just before the world would see the full wrath of a judge who built her career on exposing arrogance, Judge Judy did something that made even her longtime viewers gasp louder than they ever had before. She smiled, but not the kind of smile that offers comfort. The kind of smile that tells you your life is about to change forever, because what would happen next would not only make history on daytime television, it would break the internet. What? Judge Judy said in the next 30 seconds made even the bailiff's jaw drop, and turned Karen Blake's smug grin into sheer terror. The soundstage lights hummed softly above the courtroom as a producer whispered into his headset, "Keep rolling. Don't cut. Not for anything." They knew what was unfolding was no longer just a case. It was television history in the making. Karen Blake had strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom that morning like a storm in heels. Her lawsuit on paper seemed simple, a business dispute over an unpaid salon invoice. But beneath that paperwork lived something much darker, a personality built on manipulation, rage, and unchecked entitlement. For years, Karen had made her living not through skill, but through control, controlling her clients, her employees, even her own friends. If someone complained about her work, she humiliated them. If a co-worker tried to stand up to her, she bullied them into quitting. And when a customer refused to pay for a botched job, she found new ways to turn the story upside down and play the victim. But this time, she had chosen the wrong opponent. The defendant, a quiet woman named Marissa Cole, a single mother of 2, sat trembling at the defense table. She looked nothing like a fighter. Her outfit was modest, her hair tied back, her voice barely above a whisper. But behind that calm exterior, there was a story of betrayal that had brought her face to face with the woman who had nearly ruined her life. Marissa had once been Karen's employee, a talented hairstylist who brought in loyal clients and glowing reviews. When she asked for a small raise, Karen turned on her, calling her ungrateful and replaceable. A week later, Marissa was fired. 2 days after that, Karen filed a claim accusing Marissa of stealing supplies, a claim so false it made local headlines. Now, after months of damage to her reputation and her livelihood, Marissa had finally gotten her chance to defend herself. But even as the cameras rolled, it wasn't Marissa who seemed nervous. It was the entire production team. They had seen Karen's attitude before in countless guests, but never one this volatile. She had mocked the bailiff before court started. She had laughed when the stage manager asked her to lower her voice. And when the assistant producer asked her to sign her release form, she had smirked and said, "This show should thank me. I'm about to give you your highest ratings ever." What she didn't realize was that Judge Judy had been silently watching everything through the monitor in her chambers. The sighs, the smirks, the superiority. And when Karen walked into that courtroom, chin high, sunglasses still on, Judy was ready. The cameras captured every detail, the way Judy adjusted her robe, the way her hands folded neatly over the bench, and the subtle smile that only longtime fans knew meant one thing: someone was about to get destroyed. "Ms. Blake," Judge Judy began, her tone deceptively polite, "you're suing your former employee for what you claim are unpaid salon damages, amounting to $4,500, is that correct?" Karen leaned back, flashing that signature smirk. "Yes, Your Honor. That's what happens when you hire untrained help who can't handle high-end clients." She gestured toward Marissa without even looking at her. "She ruined my business reputation, and I'm here to collect what I'm owed." Judge Judy didn't blink. "Interesting," she said softly. Her eyes flicked to Marissa, who sat quietly with her folder of documents. "And you, Ms. Cole?" Marissa's hands trembled as she spoke, but her voice held steady. "Your Honor, everything she's saying is a lie. I didn't ruin anything. Karen cut her off, laughing. "Of course she'd say that. That's what liars do. Ms. Blake." Judge Judy's voice sliced through the air like a blade. The laughter stopped instantly. The air thickened. That was the first warning. The one anyone familiar with this courtroom knew meant stop talking. But Karen, blinded by arrogance, didn't stop. "Oh, come on, Your Honor," she said, rolling her eyes. "You've dealt with girls like her before. Playing the victim card, crying poor single mum." The audience gasped. The bailiff took one cautious step forward, and that's when Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing, the faintest twitch at the corner of her mouth, a gesture every viewer recognized. "Miss Blake," she said calmly, "you seem very comfortable talking over people. Let's see how comfortable you are when someone talks over you." Karen smirked again, not realizing what she had just triggered, because at that very moment, Judge Judy was about to set in motion the first trap, the one that would unravel everything Karen had built her entire life around. Judge Judy opened a folder on her desk, one Karen didn't know existed, and inside it lay something that made the arrogant salon owner's blood run cold. The sound of that folder opening was louder than thunder. Karen's smirk faltered for the first time. Judge Judy's fingers tapped lightly on the paper inside, her eyes scanning the top sheet before she looked up, expression unreadable. "Ms. Blake," she said, voice smooth and steady, "before we continue, I'd like to confirm something." Karen adjusted her blazer, trying to reassemble her composure. "Of course, Your Honor," she said with mock confidence. "Anything to move this along?" The judge's gaze was razor-sharp. "Do you recognize this?" She held up a glossy photograph. The courtroom cameras zoomed in instantly. It was a picture of Karen, smiling proudly at a charity gala 6 weeks earlier. At Marissa's new salon, Karen's jaw clenched. "That's irrelevant," she said, waving a hand dismissively. Judge Judy didn't blink. "Irrelevant?" she repeated. "Because according to the timestamp, this photo was taken 3 days after you filed this lawsuit, claiming Ms. Cole had destroyed your professional reputation beyond repair. And yet here you are, hairstyled, smiling, in the very salon you accused of ruining you," the audience murmured. The bailiff's lips twitched as if fighting a grin. Karen's hands fidgeted under the desk. Marissa's eyes welled up, but not from fear this time, from the slow dawning realization that the truth was finally on her side. Karen tried to recover. "Your Honor, I was invited there. I didn't know whose salon it was." Judge Judy's voice cut her off like a guillotine. "Ms. Blake, you tagged the salon on your social media post. You captioned it, Support local businesses even when your employees think they can do better. The audience gasped. A ripple of laughter followed before Judy raised her hand, restoring silence instantly. Now it wasn't just a court case anymore. It was exposure, and Karen could feel it, the control she always weaponized slipping through her fingers. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her tone changing from polite curiosity to surgical precision. You claimed Ms. Cole caused $4,500 in damages to your reputation, but I see no proof of that. Instead, I see tax records indicating that your profits increased by 12% after she left your salon. Care to explain how a business allegedly ruined by an employee somehow became more successful? Karen's lips parted, but no sound came out. The tension in her jaw trembled as the cameras zoomed closer. You see, Ms. Blake, Judy continued, I've been doing this for a long time. And I've met every kind of manipulator there is. The emotional kind, the financial kind, the professional kind. And you, my dear, are the professional kind. The type who hides cruelty behind contracts and calls it business. Karen's face flushed red. You can't talk to me like that. I came here for justice. Judge Judy's tone hardened. You came here for revenge. The entire room went silent again. That single word, revenge, hit harder than a gavel. Judy turned toward Marissa. You said you worked for Ms. Blake for how long? 4 years, Your Honor, Marissa said quietly. And how did she treat you? Marissa hesitated. The cameras caught her fingers trembling. She told me I was nothing without her, that no one would ever hire me. She yelled in front of clients, threw scissors once when I accidentally overbooked. Lies! Karen shouted. She's making this up to make herself look like a victim. Judge Judy didn't even raise her voice. Sit down, Ms. Blake. It wasn't a request, it was an order. The bailiff shifted closer as Karen slammed herself back into her chair, fuming. Miss Cole, Judy said, eyes still locked on Karen, you mentioned in your statement that you kept evidence, emails, text messages, maybe recordings. Marissa nodded slowly and opened her folder. Yes, Your Honor, I brought everything. Karen froze. She hadn't expected that. The camera zoomed in on Marissa's trembling hands as she lifted a small USB drive and placed it on the table. Judge Judy gestured to the bailiff. Please bring that here. The bailiff took the drive and handed it to Judy, who plugged it into the monitor beside her bench. A faint static filled the speakers, followed by a familiar voice. Karen's voice recorded in crisp clarity. You think you can walk away from me and build your own salon? Sweetheart, I own this town. I can destroy your reputation in a single post, the courtroom gasped. Karen's face turned white. Judge Judy let the words hang in the air for a long, painful moment before she spoke again. Destroy her reputation in a single post, she repeated quietly. That doesn't sound like an employer seeking justice. That sounds like a bully issuing a threat. Karen shifted in her seat, unable to meet her gaze. For the first time, her confidence wasn't just cracked, it was shattering. And just as the audience began to whisper, Judge Judy leaned forward and added, But the real reason you came to this courtroom, Ms. Blake, isn't in this folder. It's in the file I have right here, the one you thought no one knew about. Karen blinked. What file? Judge Judy's eyes glimmered. The one that proves this isn't your first false lawsuit. Judge Judy turned the page, and what she revealed next didn't just change the case. It changed Karen's entire life. The page flipped, and the sound alone made Karen's heart skip. Judge Judy slid a single sheet forward, perfectly aligned with the edge of her bench. The studio lights reflected off the crisp document header. State of California, Small Claims Court Records. Karen's stomach sank. Judy's voice came calm, deliberate, and mercilessly precise. Ms. Blake, this, she tapped the paper once, is a record of a case you filed last year. Same accusations, same dollar amount, different victim. The audience went dead silent. Only the faint hum of the air conditioning filled the void. Karen swallowed hard. That's not relevant to— Oh, it's very relevant, Judy cut in sharply. Because last year you accused another former employee, Chloe Ramirez, of sabotaging your salon's reputation. You sued her for $4,500. The same number you're claiming here. Karen's voice cracked. That was different. Judy didn't blink. Different? Or identical right down to the language in your complaint? The judge flipped another page. I have transcripts here from that previous hearing. Ms. Blake, you told the presiding judge that Chloe couldn't handle the pressure of excellence. You said she was jealous of your success, and you presented zero evidence, just as you've done today. Karen's jaw tightened. Her hands gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles went white. Your Honor, that woman was jealous. Everyone is jealous of me because I built something from nothing. Enough, Judge Judy snapped. The single word cut through Karen's voice like glass. The bailiff straightened behind her, ready for whatever came next. Judy leaned forward slightly. I've read through your employment contracts, your non-disclosure agreements, even your online reviews. You seem to have a long trail of complaints behind you. Clients, employees, business partners, all using the same words. Toxic, vindictive, manipulative. The audience gasped. Karen's breath came faster. She forced a shaky laugh. Oh, please. Online reviews? Those could be anyone. Trolls, competitors. You can't take those seriously. Judy's eyes narrowed. You're right. You can't always believe what you read online. But you can believe a pattern. And Miss Blake, your pattern is as clear as day. For a long, tense beat, neither woman moved. Then Judy tapped another folder, this one thicker, heavier. You see, Ms. Blake, before this hearing began, I requested public filings from your local business bureau. Imagine my surprise when I discovered 3 more lawsuits, all involving you. Different victims. Same manipulation. Karen's voice trembled. That's not possible. Oh, it's very possible, Judy replied coldly. In fact, one of those victims was a 19-year-old intern who you accused of theft after she quit. Do you recall that? Karen's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, realizing she was trapped, the cameras catching every flicker of panic. The audience murmured again, the buzz growing louder. Bailiff, Judy said, her voice suddenly soft. Too soft. Yes, Your Honor. Please read the highlighted portion aloud. The bailiff adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and began reading from the record. Plaintiff Karen Blake was found to have fabricated text message evidence in support of her claim. Gasps filled the room. A wave of murmuring swept through the audience like wind through trees. Karen shot up from her seat. That's a lie. That judge misunderstood. Sit down. The command hit like a gunshot. Even the bailiff flinched. Karen froze halfway between standing and sitting, then reluctantly sank back into her chair. Judge Judy didn't yell. She didn't even raise her voice. That made it worse. Much worse, Ms. Blake, she said softly. This courtroom has seen arrogance before. It has seen entitlement. But what you've done goes beyond both. You've turned justice into a weapon. Karen's lips parted, trembling. I didn't mean, you didn't mean to get caught, Judy interrupted. The words hit like a slap. For the first time, Karen's face broke. The foundation of defiance cracked into something raw, something terrified. Marissa sat in stunned silence, tears slipping down her cheeks as she clutched her folder. Judge Judy flipped the file closed. This isn't just about money anymore, she said. It's about character. And what's written in these pages shows me exactly who you are and who you've hurt. Karen whispered. You can't prove... Oh, I can, Judy said, sliding one last document forward. Because this morning, one of your former employees reached out to our producers. She's here today, waiting outside that door. Karen's head snapped toward the entrance, eyes wide. The audience collectively gasped. The bailiff took one step toward the double doors at the back of the courtroom. Shall I bring her in, Your Honor? Judge Judy nodded once. Please do. Karen's face drained of color. No, this is ridiculous. This is a setup. But it was too late. The bailiff's hand touched the handle. The door creaked open, and the shadow of the figure waiting outside fell across the floor. When the mystery woman stepped into the courtroom, every single person watching, in the studio and at home, gasped. Because she wasn't just anyone from Karen's past. She was the one person Karen never wanted to see again. The heavy courtroom doors groaned open. A quiet hush swept through the audience as a woman stepped inside. Early 30s, confident but visibly emotional, holding a folder tight against her chest. Karen's hands flew to her mouth. No, not her. The woman's name was Chloe Ramirez, the same former employee from the previous lawsuit Judge Judy had just exposed. But what sent the chill down everyone's spine wasn't her presence. It was the expression on her face, calm, certain, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The bailiff guided her to the witness area. Chloe sat, took a breath, and looked straight at Judge Judy. "Your Honor," she began softly, "I didn't come here for revenge. I came because someone finally needs to know what she does to people when the cameras aren't rolling." Karen slammed her hands on the table. "This is harassment. You can't just bring in random people to smear my name." Judge Judy's tone was steel. "Ms. Blake, you opened that door when you brought your reputation into this courtroom. Now we're going to walk through it, together." The audience erupted in murmurs. Camera 2 zoomed in tight on Karen's face, red, sweating, panic beginning to creep in. Judy nodded to Chloe. "Go ahead." Chloe unfolded a single printed email and began reading, "From Karen Blake. Subject, keep your mouth shut. Message, if you ever tell anyone what really happened at my salon, I'll ruin you. I'll make sure you never work again." The words hit the courtroom like a thunderclap. Karen's lips quivered. "That's fake. Completely fabricated," but Chloe wasn't done. She reached into her folder and pulled out a voice recording device. "Your Honor, I didn't want to use this. I kept it in case she ever came after me again." Judy nodded to the bailiff. "Let's hear it." A single click, and then Karen's unmistakable voice filled the courtroom. "You think you can take clients from me, Chloe? You think this industry forgives disloyalty? Watch me destroy your career, one rumor at a time." The audience gasped. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God." Karen's entire body stiffened. She looked toward the cameras, realizing millions would soon hear those exact words. Her empire, her image, everything she had built on control, was disintegrating live. Judge Judy leaned forward. "You call this justice, Ms. Blake? Or is this your version of customer service?" Karen tried to respond, but her voice came out small, a shadow of her former arrogance. "You don't understand. They pushed me." "Pushed you to threaten them?" Judy's tone sharpened. "Pushed you to falsify evidence? Pushed you to use the court system as a weapon?" Karen's facade began to crumble completely. Her words tumbled out faster now, desperate, defensive, each one making things worse. "They lied about me. Everyone lies about me because they can't stand that I'm successful." Judge Judy raised her hand, cutting her off again. "Success built on fear isn't success, Ms. Blake. It's tyranny." The line hit so hard the courtroom actually fell into stunned silence. For even the audience seemed afraid to breathe. Karen's eyes darted wildly, from Chloe to Marissa to the cameras. Her perfect image was gone. And yet, instead of humility, something darker flickered behind her eyes. Fury. The kind that comes from realizing the world you controlled is collapsing, and the only weapon left is rage. She shot to her feet again. "This whole thing is a setup. You people planned this." Her voice cracked with panic. "I've seen the way your producers edit things. You're all vultures. You just want to humiliate me on TV." Judge Judy didn't move. Her silence spoke louder than words. Then slowly she leaned forward and said, "Ms. Blake, the only one humiliating you is you." The audience exploded, half gasping, half applauding, before the bailiff motioned for quiet. Judy tapped her pen once against the folder. "I think we've heard enough shouting for one day. But before we move forward, there's one more thing you should know, Ms. Blake. Something that might explain why your arrogance has no limits." Karen froze. "What are you talking about?" Judy looked at her with something almost like pity. "It seems the person you thought was on your side in this case wasn't entirely honest with you either." Karen blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Judge Judy turned to her clerk and nodded. The clerk handed over a sealed envelope, one that hadn't been opened until this very moment. The judge tore it open slowly, deliberately, and held up the letter inside. "This," she said, "is from your own attorney." Karen's face went pale. The audience leaned in. Judge Judy began to read the letter aloud, and within seconds the entire courtroom realized that Karen's biggest betrayal didn't come from her enemies. It came from the one person she trusted most. Judge Judy unfolded the letter with the kind of deliberate calm that made everyone lean in. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "Before I read this," she said, voice cutting through the tension like a blade, "let me remind everyone watching, this is exactly why you never, ever underestimate what the truth can do once it's set free." She looked directly into the main camera. "And if you believe bullies like Karen Blake should always face consequences, make sure you hit that like button right now, because what's about to happen next is the definition of poetic justice. The studio audience murmured in agreement, a low wave of anticipation sweeping through the crowd. Judy turned her attention back to the trembling defendant. "This letter," she continued, "was submitted by your former attorney, the same one who represented you in your previous lawsuits. He wanted it added to the record after reviewing your case file." Karen's eyes darted wildly. "What? Why? He can't—" But Judy ignored her and began reading aloud. "To the Honorable Judge Judith Shandlin, I represented Ms. Blake in a previous matter involving similar allegations. After reviewing new evidence, I feel ethically compelled to disclose that during our last case, my client withheld material information from the court and falsified key documents without my knowledge." The gasps hit like a wave. Karen staggered backward, clutching the edge of the table for support. "That's not true. He's lying. He's jealous of me." Judy's tone remained calm, but her eyes were fire. "It continues," she said, reading further. "Ms. Blake instructed my office to fabricate screenshots and emails to support her claim. Once confronted, she terminated our services and threatened to ruin my firm's reputation if we spoke out." The courtroom went still. The tension was so heavy it was almost physical. Judge Judy folded the letter neatly, laid it on the bench and looked up. "Ms. Blake, would you like to explain this, or shall we consider your silence an admission?" Karen's mouth opened but no words came. Only the faint sound of her breathing, ragged and shallow. Her lawyer, the one she bragged about, trusted, and weaponized against others, had just detonated her last defense. Marissa covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Chloe looked away, almost pitying her former boss, and the audience silent, not because they didn't want to react, but because they knew something bigger was coming. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. Her tone softened, but it was the softness of a warning, not mercy. "You've spent years tearing people down, Miss Blake. You used power, money, and fear to make others small, but today the truth made you small." Karen's lip trembled. Her voice broke. I just wanted respect." Judy's reply was instant. "Respect isn't taken. It's earned." The audience erupted again, spontaneous applause breaking through the thick silence, before the bailiff raised his hand for order. And yet, even through the chaos, Judge Judy's focus never wavered. She wasn't finished. "Now, before I give my preliminary findings," she said, "there's one last witness we need to hear from." Karen looked up sharply. "Another one?" "No, this is enough." Judy shook her head. "No, Ms. Blake, this one isn't here to accuse you. She's here to tell us what you did after your last case ended." The room collectively leaned forward, Karen's face twisted with confusion. "After my last case? I didn't do anything." But Judge Judy simply turned toward the double doors again. The bailiff stepped forward, his hand on the handle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Judy said, voice low and ominous, "our final witness knows exactly how far Ms. Blake went to keep her lies alive. And when you hear her story—" She paused, just long enough for the cameras to zoom in tight on Karen's trembling face. "You'll finally understand why this case will go down as the most shocking courtroom moment in television history." The doors opened again. A figure stepped inside, and the moment Karen saw who it was, she screamed. The scream tore through the courtroom like a siren. Karen stumbled backward, knocking over her chair as the doors swung wide. The audience gasped. Even Judge Judy's usually unflinching expression sharpened. The woman who stepped through the door wasn't a stranger. She wasn't a past employee or an ex-client. She was Karen's own sister. Her name was Laura Blake. Late 30s, quiet confidence, no makeup, a stark contrast to Karen's glossy exterior. And yet the resemblance was undeniable. Same eyes, same bone structure. But where Karen's gaze radiated fury, Laura's carried something far heavier: sorrow. The bailiff guided her to the stand. Karen's voice trembled. No, she doesn't belong here. She's lying. She's always been jealous." Judge Judy raised a hand for silence. "Ms. Blake, sit down. You will listen." Karen froze in place, chest heaving. Laura glanced at her sister, then turned to the bench. "Your Honor, I know this isn't standard, but I came here because I couldn't watch her hurt another person. Not after what she did to our mother." The entire courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, stunned faces everywhere. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Our mother?" Laura nodded slowly, tears forming. 3 years ago, after our mom had a stroke, I was taking care of her. Karen handled the finances, or at least that's what she told us. She said she was managing Mum's medical bills and property taxes, but when Mom passed, Laura's voice cracked, we found out she'd drained nearly $80,000 from Mum's account and forged her signature. A single collective gasp rolled through the audience. Karen shouted, "That's a lie! You can't prove anything." But Laura didn't back down. She reached into her folder and held up several sheets of paper. "Actually, I can." Her hand shook slightly as she passed them to the bailiff. Bank records, transfers, all to her business account. The bailiff delivered the documents to Judge Judy, who scanned them in silence, her expression changing slowly but unmistakably, from disbelief to controlled fury. "Miss Blake," she said finally, her tone dangerously quiet, "you stole from your own mother." Karen's face flushed red. "It wasn't stealing. It was a loan. She wanted to help me." Laura's voice cracked with emotion. "Mom couldn't even speak after her stroke, Karen. She couldn't have agreed to anything." The courtroom fell utterly still. Even the bailiff looked shaken. Judy's eyes locked onto Karen's. "You forged her signature, didn't you?" Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Just a faint broken sound. "You thought no one would ever know," Judy continued, voice like cold steel. "You thought you could bully, manipulate, and twist your way through life without ever paying the price." Karen whispered, "I did what I had to do." Judy's tone sharpened. "You did what no decent person ever does. You turned family into victims." Karen's facade shattered completely. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands trembled visibly now. The audience was dead silent, frozen between disgust and disbelief. Judge Judy folded her hands. "Ms. Blake," she said slowly, "I've presided over thousands of cases, liars, cheats, manipulators, thieves. But this?" She paused, shaking her head. "This is the first time I've seen someone so proudly destroy the people who loved her most." Karen's eyes welled with tears, her voice breaking through sobs. "You don't know what it's like. Everyone abandoned me. I built everything myself." Laura whispered softly from the stand. "No, Karen, you burned everything yourself." The words hit like a bullet. Karen dropped her gaze. For the first time, she had nothing left to say. Judy exhaled slowly, looking at the cameras, then the audience. "This," she said, "is why people need to see what unchecked entitlement looks like. Because this isn't about a lawsuit anymore. It's about accountability. And the moment it finally catches up." The light seemed to dim as the gravity of her words hung in the air. Karen looked up again, broken but defiant. "You can't prove intent," she whispered. "You can't prove I meant to hurt anyone." Judge Judy's gaze flickered to the letter from the attorney, then to the documents in front of her. "Oh, I think intent is the only thing you did prove," the audience murmured again. But before Judy could continue, a stagehand suddenly entered from the side door, holding a small black flash drive. He handed it to the bailiff and whispered something. Judy raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" The bailiff cleared his throat. "Your Honor, it's from the show's legal team. They said it's the footage Karen asked the producers to delete before taping." Karen's face went white. "Wait, what? No! That's private. It's not relevant." Judge Judy turned the flash drive in her fingers, her expression unreadable. "Oh, I think it might be very relevant, Ms. Blake." She handed it to the clerk. "Let's play it." The lights dimmed. The monitors flickered, and what appeared on screen next made everyone in that courtroom realize the worst wasn't over yet. As the footage began to play, the truth finally came into focus, and what it revealed about Karen's secret meeting just days before the hearing changed everything. The screen crackled to life. The courtroom lights dimmed to a cold blue hue as the monitors illuminated every face in the room. The video was grainy but clear enough, security footage from a hotel conference room, time-stamped 2 days before the hearing. Karen sat at a table across from a man in a suit. Between them lay stacks of papers, a half-empty bottle of wine, and a leather briefcase. The man's voice came through the speakers. "So you're sure this will work?" Karen leaned forward, smirking, that same smug, self-assured smirk she had worn at the start of the trial. "Of course it'll work," she said. Judge Judy's predictable. She always sides with the underdog. "I'll play the victim. Tear up a little. Talk about trauma, maybe throw in something about mental health." Works every time, the courtroom collectively gasped. And the documents? The man asked. Karen tapped her nails against the papers in front of her. Already handled. The original ones make me look bad, so I rewrote the sequence. By the time they check, it'll be too late. Her voice, so casual, so venomously confident, filled the room like poison. The video zoomed in just as she took a sip of wine and laughed. Besides, she added, if it goes south, I'll pull the disability angle again. Sympathy always wins views. You'd be shocked how easy it is to fool people who think they're good. The screen went black. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like gravity itself. Judge Judy's hands folded on the bench, knuckles white. Play that last line again, she said quietly. The clip rewound. Karen's voice echoed once more. You'd be shocked how easy it is to fool people who think they're good. It was like watching the final mask rip apart. Karen stood motionless, every ounce of blood draining from her face. That's taken out of context, she whispered. It's edited. Judy's gaze was razor sharp. The timestamp matches your phone records. You met with a man named Eric Malden, correct? A private contractor, who's been under investigation for falsifying court evidence. Karen didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat moved, but no words came. Answer me, Judy snapped. Karen broke. Yes, okay. I met him. He said he could fix my case. He said everyone else does it. Everyone else? Judy's tone was almost disbelieving. You think corruption is a trend to join? Karen's voice turned frantic. You don't understand. They were going to ruin me. My reputation, my business, everything. I had no choice. Judge Judy's eyes hardened. You always have a choice, Ms. Blake. You just keep choosing yourself. Karen's breathing grew ragged. The camera panned closer, sweat beading across her forehead, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She slammed her hands on the table. You think you're better than me. You sit up there acting holy like you've never made mistakes. Everyone loves you, but you're just as cruel as the people you judge. The audience gasped. The bailiff took a single step forward just in case. Judy didn't flinch. She waited. Calm, composed, dangerous. Done? She asked softly. Karen's chest heaved. I just wanted to be respected, she said again, her voice collapsing into a whisper. All my life people talk down to me. Men, bosses, clients. I fought for everything I have, and you all sit there like I'm some kind of monster. Judy's reply came slow and deliberate, every word cutting deeper than the last. Monsters aren't born from ambition, Ms. Blake. They're born when ambition forgets humanity. Karen sank into her chair. For the first time, the courtroom's villain didn't look powerful. She looked small. The audience stayed silent, not out of respect, but out of disbelief that a person could fall so far so quickly. Judge Judy reached for the flash drive, turning it over in her hand like it was a weapon and a mirror at once. This footage wasn't meant to be seen, was it? She said. You asked the producers to delete it because you knew, deep down, that if people saw the real you, it would all be over. Tears streamed freely down Karen's face. Please, just stop. But Judy didn't stop. Do you know why people watch this courtroom, Ms. Blake? She said, her voice soft but commanding. Not for the drama. Not for me. They watch because they want to believe that truth still matters. That decency still wins. You tried to turn that into entertainment. Karen buried her face in her hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It always goes this far, Judy replied. Because people like you never think there's a line until they've already crossed it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judy leaned back, exhaled slowly, then looked at the cameras, straight into the lens, straight into millions of watching eyes. Let this be a reminder, she said, that lies can build empires, but only truth can tear them down. The audience erupted, not with applause this time, but a low, collective murmur of awe. The kind that follows witnessing something final. Karen sat frozen. Her voice was barely audible. Please, Your Honor, don't ruin my life. Judy stared at her for a long moment, not cruel, not kind, just tired. You already did that yourself. She turned toward the clerk. Bring me the updated evidence files. We're not finished yet. Karen lifted her head slowly, trembling. What are you doing? Judge Judy's tone dropped an octave. I'm calling a recess. When we return, I'll be ready to issue my ruling. Karen blinked, confused. Recess? Why? Haven't you said enough? But Judy's final words before the break were chilling. Because there's one more piece of evidence I haven't shown yet, and when you see who provided it, you'll understand exactly how far your betrayal reached. Karen's jaw fell open. Across the courtroom, a figure she thought she'd never see again slowly stood up, holding the final file that would seal her fate. The courtroom buzzed with a nervous electricity when Judge Judy returned from recess. The kind of tension that made even the cameras feel like they were holding their breath. The bailiff's voice broke the silence. "All rise," Judy entered briskly, expression unreadable. She didn't look at Karen, didn't glance at the audience. Her focus was razor-locked on the single man standing at the witness area. Karen froze. Her hands went limp on the table. "No," she whispered. "No, it can't be him." The man turned slowly. Mid-50s, grey suit, stern, calculating eyes. His name was Alan Pierce, Karen's former business partner, and the one person who had vanished right after their company collapsed last year. "Mr. Pierce," Judy began, her tone calm but heavy. "You've been subpoenaed to appear regarding new evidence that surfaced this morning." Karen's head jerked toward him. "You sold me out," she hissed. "You're supposed to be in Mexico." The audience gasped. Judy lifted one eyebrow. "Interesting location, Miss Blake. Why would you think he's supposed to be there?" Karen realized her slip and went silent. Alan stepped forward, a folder in his hand. "Your Honor," he said, "I didn't want to be here. But when I saw what she said on national television, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore." He placed the folder on the evidence table. "This is the paper trail. Every fraud, every wire transfer, every falsified contract we created to make the salon business look legitimate." Karen leapt from her seat. "You're lying. You're the one who handled the accounts." Alan didn't even look at her. "I handled the numbers. But you told me where they came from." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "And where did they come from?" Alan met her gaze. "From charity funds. Donations meant for cancer patients." She used her mother's name to make the withdrawals look like memorial grants. The courtroom erupted. Even the cameraman gasped. The sound caught faintly in the mic. Judge Judy's gavel struck. "Order, order!" But Karen's voice drowned out the chaos. "He's making it up. He was the one who forged the records. You can't trust him. He's a crook." Alan turned to her, calm and deadly. "Yes, I was. Until I realized what you did with the money. You didn't just steal it, Karen. You spent it on designer handbags, vacations, and ad campaigns for your image rehabilitation." The audience erupted again. Someone shouted, "Monster!" Another voice, "She robbed her own mother's charity." Judge Judy raised her hand sharply. "Quiet!" She turned her glare back to Karen. "Is that true?" Karen shook her head violently, tears flying. "No, I gave some back. I meant to fix it. I just needed time." "Time?" Judy repeated, voice trembling with fury. "Time to what? To bury the evidence deeper? To find another victim?" Karen's breathing turned shallow, panicked. "You don't get it. I built everything alone. Nobody ever helped me. I deserve that money." The words slipped out before she realized what she'd said. The silence that followed was devastating. Judge Judy stared at her like she'd just confessed to the universe itself. "Deserved?" she said quietly. "You deserved to steal from dying people?" Karen froze, realizing too late what she'd admitted, her eyes wide, mouth trembling. "I didn't mean it like that." But Judy had already turned to Alan. "Mr. Pierce, are there transaction records to confirm this?" "Yes, Your Honor." He handed over the final sheet. Judge Judy read in silence. The only sound was Karen's uneven breathing and the distant hum of the lights. Then Judy looked up, and her expression pure steel. "Ms. Blake, the evidence shows $67,430 withdrawn from a trust fund belonging to the Eleanor Blake Cancer Relief Foundation. That's your mother's name, is it not?" Karen swallowed hard, whispering, "Yes. And you used that money to pay for this case's legal expenses, didn't you?" Karen's voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." Judy's eyes flared. "No, Ms. Blake, it was exactly supposed to happen like that. Because you planned it. Every lie, every manipulation, every tear planned." The audience was silent now. No one dared move. Judy stood from the bench. "You exploited your mother's death. You lied to this court, and you tried to weaponize sympathy for profit. But what you didn't plan for was that your lies would eat each other alive. Karen was shaking uncontrollably. "Please, I can fix this. I'll pay it back." Judy cut her off, slamming her gavel down so hard the sound echoed through the rafters. "You can't pay back decency. Ms. Blake, once it's gone, it's gone." Karen's sobs filled the room. But the cameras kept rolling. The world was watching. Judge Judy slowly sat back down. "We're nearing the end of this, and I need a clear head for my final ruling." But before that, she gestured to the court clerk, who nodded and pulled up another file on the monitor. "There's one last clip you all need to see. It's not about fraud. It's about what happens when arrogance turns into something darker." Karen looked up, eyes swollen. "No, not that clip. Please, not that one." Judge Judy didn't answer. She just gave the signal. The lights dimmed again. The screen flickered. A new video began to play, grainy security footage from the courtroom hallway after Karen's initial outburst earlier that day. In the footage, she wasn't crying. She wasn't broken. She was laughing. "Did you see her face? The old bat actually thinks she can scare me. I could spit in her face and she'd still try to sound righteous." The video paused. Back in the courtroom, the real Judge Judy stared down at her. "Spit in my face, Ms. Blake?" she said quietly. Karen froze. The entire audience leaned forward. "You said that today before this hearing even started." Karen's voice cracked. "It was a joke." "I didn't mean—" Judge Judy raised her gavel. "Oh, I think you meant every word." The air in the room turned glacial. The entire audience could feel what was coming. Justice wasn't just close. It was about to strike like lightning. Judge Judy set the gavel down, leaned forward, and said the words that made every person in that courtroom go silent. "Ms. Blake, you might want to brace yourself, because I'm about to show you what happens when someone actually spits in the face of justice." The air in the courtroom turned heavy, electric, suffocating, thick with the kind of tension that precedes an explosion. Judge Judy's voice dropped to that terrifying whisper she reserved for the moments before she struck. "Roll the footage." The monitors flared again, a new angle unseen until now. "Security camera." The timestamp read 9:17 a.m., 1 hour before the hearing began. The video showed Karen pacing in the hallway, phone in hand, fury blazing behind her sunglasses. Her voice echoed through the speakers, sharp and venomous. "I'm not scared of that fossil. I could spit right in Judge Judy's face, and she'd still try to act superior. Let her try to humiliate me. I'll show her who runs this show." The audience gasped in unison. Karen's own words, cold, arrogant, dripping with contempt, filled every corner of the room. And as the clip ended, the camera caught something else. Karen turning, noticing the security lens pointed at her, and deliberately flipping it off with a smirk. The image froze there. Her middle finger raised at the camera, burned across the monitors like a scar. When the lights came back on, the silence was deafening. Judge Judy stood. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "Miss Blake," she said, "that is not just contempt for this court. That is contempt for decency itself." Karen tried to speak, but her words came out as incoherent sobs. "It was a joke. It was a stupid joke." Judy leaned forward, eyes blazing. "No, it was truth. The kind people hide behind laughter because they think they're untouchable. But the thing about arrogance," she pointed the gavel toward Karen, "is that it always writes its own confession." The audience broke into whispers, waves of shock rolling through the crowd. Judy continued, her tone rising, rhythmic, almost cinematic. "You came into this courtroom thinking you could manipulate the system. You weaponized sympathy. You mocked justice. You even used your own family's tragedy as a marketing tool. And when the mask slipped, when the lies started cracking, you blamed everyone but yourself." Karen buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "Please, I'll do anything, just don't—" Judge Judy cut her off, voice now rising like thunder. "Don't what, Ms. Blake? Don't hold you accountable. Don't let the world see who you really are. That's not justice. That's theater. And I'm not in the entertainment business. I'm in the truth business." The room erupted in applause, but Judy slammed the gavel once. "Order!" Her gaze didn't leave Karen. "Ms. Blake, for 6 weeks, you've dragged innocent people through humiliation. You lied, you threatened, and you mocked the very concept of fairness. And now," she took a long pause, "you're going to face exactly what you've been running from. Consequences." Karen looked up through tears. You can't ruin me on live television. Judy's tone turned glacial. I don't have to. You've done that yourself. She gestured to the clerk. Enter into record. All financial evidence, signed witness statements, and video testimony. The clerk nodded. Entered, Your Honor. Judy turned back to Karen. Before I give my ruling, she said, I have one final question. Not as a judge, but as a person. She stepped down from the bench, closing the distance between them, her heels echoing like hammers against the courtroom floor. Why? She asked softly. Why did you spit on everything good? The trust, the kindness, the people who tried to help you. Karen's lips trembled. Because when you've been powerless your whole life, power feels like oxygen. The audience fell silent again. Judge Judy's reply was ice and flame all at once. And look what it did to you. You mistook poison for air, Karen broke, completely this time. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing like the world had finally caught up. Judy turned away from her, addressing the audience directly now, her voice resonant and deliberate. This is why integrity isn't optional. Because the moment you trade it for greed, you stop living for truth and start dying for image. A ripple of applause built, restrained at first, then growing, unstoppable. But Judy wasn't finished. She raised her gavel again, her final words cutting through the noise like lightning. Miss Blake, this court finds you guilty of defamation, perjury, and fraudulent intent. You will pay full restitution to the victims named in this case, and I will personally forward your file to the district attorney's office for criminal review. Karen's scream echoed, part shock, part terror, part disbelief. No, you can't do that on camera. You'll destroy me. Judge Judy's final words were surgical. You destroyed yourself the moment you believed you were bigger than the truth. She slammed the gavel down. The echo was thunderous, the sound of a legacy sealing its lesson in history. Karen collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Her reflection in the courtroom's polished floor, makeup streaked, eyes hollow, was the last image the cameras lingered on. And then, without warning, Judge Judy turned toward the audience again. Her voice softened, but it carried power that filled the room. Don't scroll. Don't look away. Because what you just saw, arrogance meeting justice, is something every one of us can learn from. She paused. The lights dimmed slightly, but the story doesn't end here, because what happened after this verdict was even more unbelievable. Outside the courtroom, a single video clip leaked, one that would turn this case from a viral scandal into a global reckoning. The verdict rippled across the internet like a shockwave. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, clips of the final gavel slam flooded every social platform known to man. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, everywhere. The same 10-second moment played on loop. Karen Blake's final words, and Judge Judy's cold response. You destroyed yourself the moment you believed you were bigger than the truth. The video hit 10 million views in the first hour. By sunrise, it was over 85 million. The hashtags trended globally. Hashtag spit on justice. Hashtag Judge Judy exposes Karen. And the one that cut deepest. Hashtag the face of arrogance. Comment sections became virtual courtrooms. This is what happens when you fake victimhood. She messed with the wrong judge. Clips of Judge. Judy's final line were remixed into motivational videos, courtroom edits, and even protest chants. College ethics professors played it in classrooms. Legal channels broke down the ruling frame by frame, calling it the most explosive takedown in courtroom television history. But the internet wasn't finished. Someone leaked Karen's old promotional video, the one where she bragged about owning every room she walks into. The same smirk, the same tone, now a digital ghost that mocked her from every comment thread. Her business page vanished overnight. Sponsors withdrew. Clients demanded refunds. The State Bar Association launched a full ethics investigation. News headlines flooded in. Reality judge exposes serial fraudster on live TV. Karen Blake case prompts discussion about narcissism and entitlement culture. Meanwhile, Judge Judy became a symbol, again, of something larger than television. Late-night hosts quoted her. Veterans groups sent her letters of thanks. And in law schools, professors referred to her closing line as the Blake Principle, a simple maxim. Those who mock justice eventually meet it. Karen tried to issue a public apology on a live stream 2 days later. It lasted exactly 4 minutes before she broke down crying, blaming edit manipulation, media bias, and cancel culture. The internet wasn't buying it. Every comment was the same. Justice doesn't need editing. You said it yourself, only on camera. You spit at truth. It spit back. In less than a week, her entire digital footprint became a cautionary tale. Law podcasts dissected her personality. Psychologists analyzed her meltdown on talk shows. Even former employees came forward, confirming what Chloe Ramirez and Laura Blake had testified: the arrogance, the threats, the lies. But beyond the chaos, something deeper happened. Emails poured into the court's production office, thousands of them, from people who'd been bullied, gaslit or defrauded, thanking Judge Judy for giving their pain a voice. And in an ironic twist, Karen's downfall sparked a global movement called the Mirror of Truth. Hashtag campaigns encourage people to confront their own lies, their own masks, their own moments of self-deception. For the first time, Karen Blake, the woman who craved attention more than air, had it, but not the way she wanted. She became a symbol of what happens when power meets consequence. And yet, hidden deep in the trending storm, one post went viral for a different reason. It was a simple clip: Judge Judy walking out of the courtroom after the broadcast, head bowed slightly, her expression unreadable. The caption read, "Justice doesn't smile when it wins. It just breathes." The comments under that post were flooded with quiet respect, prayer emojis, and thousands of words that didn't sound like outrage. They sounded like relief. Karen Blake had been exposed, yes. But what the world saw wasn't just her destruction. It was proof that truth still had power. And just when the story seemed over, when the internet had moved on, an anonymous email landed in Judge Judy's inbox with the subject line, "For you missed one detail." Judge Judy sat alone in her chambers, long after the cameras had shut down. The courtroom lights were off. The audience seats stood empty. Only the faint hum of a ceiling fan and the soft glow from her laptop screen filled the silence. That's when she saw it. An email sent from an unlisted address. No name, no signature. Just one line in the subject: "You missed one detail." She hesitated for a moment before opening it. Inside was a single attachment, a video file labeled "Lobby Footage Extra MP4. The timestamp?" The same morning as the hearing. Judge Judy clicked play. The grainy footage showed the courthouse lobby, crowded with journalists, production crew, and security guards. Karen Blake stood near the entrance, visibly irritated, arguing with a man in a dark coat. The audio was faint but clear enough. "Karen, you said the money was gone. You promised it couldn't be traced." "Man, lower your voice. We're being recorded." "Karen, I don't care. You said the accounts were sealed. If she finds that fund, I'm done." Then the man turned, and for a split second the camera caught his face. Judge Judy froze. She knew that face. It was Alan Pierce, the same whistleblower who'd testified against Karen only hours earlier. Her hand went still on the mouse. The footage ended abruptly, but the implications thundered louder than any verdict she'd ever given. Was it possible both of them had been working together all along? Had this entire case been a power struggle between two con artists turning on each other? The thought made her pulse quicken. Justice might not be finished, not yet. She leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowed, whispering under her breath, "Looks like I have one more gavel to drop." Outside, the world was still buzzing over Karen Blake's destruction. Millions of people celebrating the moral victory. But no one knew what Judge Judy had just seen, and if what that footage suggested was true. The story everyone thought was over was about to explode all over again. Before we show you what happened when Judge Judy reopened the case, I want to hear from you. Do you believe people can change after they're exposed, or is justice the only way they ever learn? Comment "Truth always finds you" if you believe in second chances, or "No mercy for liars" if you think Judy should go even harder next time, because what happened next, when the cameras rolled again, shocked even her. Judge Judy returned to the courtroom the next morning, holding the secret footage in her hands, and when she called Alan Pierce back to the stand, the entire audience realized this trial wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next morning, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread overnight that Judge Judy was reopening the case, something she almost never did. The atmosphere was electric, charged with curiosity and a faint undercurrent of fear. Everyone wondered what could possibly be left to expose after yesterday's firestorm. Judge Judy entered the courtroom with a solemn expression, her black robe flowing like the weight of judgment itself. She didn't look at Karen. She didn't glance at the cameras. Her focus was solely on one man, Alan Pierce, now seated uneasily at the witness stand once again. "Mr. Pierce," she began, voice calm but razor-sharp. "You gave testimony under oath yesterday, correct?" Alan nodded, eyes darting. "Yes, Your Honor. And you claimed you came forward out of guilt, out of a desire to make things right." "That's right." Judy's eyes narrowed. "So tell me, why were you seen with Miss Blake in the courthouse lobby, arguing about offshore accounts 1 hour before this hearing began?" The courtroom erupted in gasps. Alan's face drained of color. Karen's head shot up, shock overtaking her tears. "Wait, what?" Judge Judy raised a hand for silence, then gestured toward the monitor. The grainy footage appeared again, this time for everyone to see. The argument. The panic. The unmistakable recognition. Alan swallowed hard. "I can explain." Judy's tone turned glacial. "Please do." He hesitated, the silence stretching until even the cameras seemed to lean in. I came here because she threatened to expose me if I didn't testify against her," he finally stammered. "We started this charity together, but when the investigation started, I told her to disappear. She didn't. She came after me. I panicked." "So you both defrauded donors," Judy said flatly. Alan nodded slowly, shame burning across his face. "Yes, but she took it further. She started using her mother's death for sympathy." "I just wanted out." Karen shot up from her seat. "You liar! You were the one who forged the first document." "You made me—" Judy slammed her gavel. "Enough!" The sound cracked through the air like lightning. "Ms. Blake, you and Mr. Pierce built a pyramid of lies together. The only difference is he cracked first." Karen collapsed back into her chair, the last of her fight gone. Alan's head hung low, his hands trembling. Judy's gaze swept across the courtroom, her tone now quieter, but no less powerful. "Two people built this empire of deceit. One out of greed, one out of fear. Both forgot that justice doesn't sleep." The audience sat frozen, every word echoing through the room. Judy continued, her voice softening just slightly. "I've spent my entire career watching people like you, people who believe they can twist truth until it bends to their will. But truth doesn't bend. It breaks the ones who try to own it." She stood from the bench, her expression unreadable. "Here is my amended ruling. Both Ms. Blake and Mr. Pierce are hereby referred to the District Attorney's Office for investigation on fraud, forgery, and perjury. All restitution will be redirected to the victims through the court-appointed trustee." She paused, then looked directly at Karen. "And you, Ms. Blake, I hope you understand that this isn't about punishment anymore. It's about reflection. Because when arrogance meets consequence, only humility can survive." Karen nodded weakly, tears streaming silently now. Not the performative sobs from before, but something different, real, broken. Judge Judy's final words were almost a whisper. "Justice doesn't seek revenge. It restores balance." The gavel fell one last time. The audience stood in stunned silence, then erupted into applause, not wild or celebratory, but respectful, reverent. Outside, cameras flashed as both Karen and Alan were escorted out of the courthouse. But this time there were no taunts, no shouts, no chaos, just a kind of quiet understanding among those watching that they had witnessed something rare, not just a reckoning, but a redemption of truth itself. And inside her chambers, Judge Judy sat down, removed her glasses, and exhaled slowly. On her desk lay the now empty folder labeled Blake Case. She wrote one final note on its cover before closing it forever. "Justice is never loud, only final." But before she could leave her office, her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "You think it's over, but one of them isn't done yet." Judge Judy stared at the screen of her phone, the words glowing against the darkness of her chambers. "You think it's over, but one of them isn't done yet." For a long moment she didn't move. The hum of the air conditioning filled the room like a pulse. Then she set the phone down beside the closed Blake Case folder and whispered almost to herself, "Then justice isn't done either." She rose, switched off the desk lamp, and walked toward the door. Outside, camera flashes still lit the courthouse steps, but she didn't pause for interviews or applause. The law didn't need an audience. It needed endurance. A single camera caught her silhouette beneath the courthouse archway, small against the marble columns yet unshakably steady. That image would become the closing frame of every news segment that night. One woman standing between truth and the shadows that followed it. Cut to montage. Karen Blake and Alan Pierce led away in separate cars, faces hidden. News anchors debating whether the anonymous message hinted at a wider fraud network. Viewers across the world rewatching the moment Judge Judy returned the gavel to its place. The gesture that said the story may pause. But justice never sleeps. The narration faded in. In a world obsessed with winning, she reminded us that sometimes the greatest victory is simply telling the truth out loud. A swell of cinematic strings. The screen darkened to black and white text appeared. Truth doesn't end at the verdict, it begins there.